Hi, my name is Susan, and we are here at the Mother's Milk Bank of the Western Great Lakes today talking to Katie Bogacki, who is a maternal mental health expert. She's a licensed clinical social worker, also certified from Postpartum Support International as a perinatal mental health expert. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. May is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month, and this week in particular, we really want to try and put the spotlight on moms and taking care of ourselves. So thanks for talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for highlighting this, particularly now, but just in general.
Certainly, I think a lot of us struggle after baby is born. What percentage of moms would you say actually get adequate support for anxiety and mental health issues? Can you explain why that percentage is and what we can do to increase that?
Sure. I mean, an exact number is hard to nail down, but it's definitely not enough. Now, we know that pre-pandemic, about 1 in 5 moms and 1 in 10 dads were experiencing perinatal mental health disorders. And since the pandemic, that's almost gone up to, we're thinking about 1 in 3 right now. And honestly, about 25 to 30% of those are actually getting the help that they need. The rest are not reaching out or not aware that what they're experiencing is something that they don't have to go through. And so one of the biggest things that, I would always say, we need to be talking about this. We need to be educating each other, ourselves, our communities, doctors, nurses, everyone on what maternal mental health is, what it can look like, and just how common it is for people to experience some sort of perinatal mood or anxiety disorder. So many people are they're hiding it, or they don't even know that they don't have to feel that way or that it can be different.
So how does this idea of super mom, this idea of trying to be everything to everyone, factor into these concerns?
Yeah, so we are definitely, we are a strong woman culture here in America, and we can do it all, and that's wonderful. However, it's not really realistic. And we have this whole facade. We see this like, moms can do everything, and we are super moms. We are, but that doesn't mean we don't need support. And that doesn't mean that we don't struggle as well, and that we can't do better for ourselves. And that it really does start with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about social media? What are your thoughts on the expectations that we see on social media and maybe some of those unrealistic portrayals of what new motherhood might look like?
Yes. Well, and it is. We post the good stuff. We post the cute pictures. We post the baby sleeping. That might have been the only 5 minutes the baby slept the entire day, though. Yeah. And it's like we really do have to remember that that's a very two-dimensional picture. There's so much more that's going on both behind that picture and around it. We're starting to get a little bit better about being honest and saying, okay, this was the only 5 minutes that my baby slept today.
Yeah.
But really just trying to make sure that we're getting the full picture. And, between social media and that supermom idea, we can be all of those things, but how are we getting to be all of those things? Do we have the right support to be able to do both?
Sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I have to admit, I am totally guilty of posting the good stuff. And part of that is for myself, because I want to be able to look back year after year and see those good things. So I think it's okay to post the good stuff as long as we all know that that's what's happening, right?
Of course, yes. And by no means should we not post that good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
We always have to remember it's not only about, this wonderful day for that person, and knowing that when we start comparing ourselves, that's where we can falter.
I think oftentimes people wait to seek services until they have a breakdown or they're at a crossroads and they feel like they've hit rock bottom. How can we support parents to know when to reach out prior to getting to that point?
Yeah. So the reality is that we all need supports. So everybody should be reaching out in some way, somehow. And it is so much easier to do this before things get to kind of that breaking point, that critical place. So during pregnancy, or even before, when we're starting to prepare, that can be part of our plan, is figuring out what are the supports, what are the resources in our area, so that when or if we start to struggle, it's so much easier to find somebody. It's so much easier to access those supports if we already know they're there. If we have no idea, it's like, if we're already struggling, it's so hard to get there.
That makes so much sense. And that's exactly what we tell people in the world of lactation as well. Find your support person before you actually need them. Find your support people while you're pregnant so that you're not trying to do that research after baby is born. Because guess what? You're not going to have time to do research after baby is born. So get your lactation consultant lined up, get your mental health expert lined up, get all those people in place before you actually need them. That's fantastic advice.
Yes, 100%. And we all know that, the earlier we get to whatever the issue is, the easier it is to resolve it. So when we wait until, you mentioned the lactation support, if we wait until we're like 5 days in and we're already struggling, it's so much harder than if we reach out that first day and say, hey, can somebody help me here? Can somebody show me what's a different way, or tell me something else?
Or just tell me that what I'm experiencing is normal.
Correct.
Sometimes that's a big part of it, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, I just need to know that it's supposed to be like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's supposed to be a little overwhelming. I think all of us are a little overwhelmed, and that's okay. It's okay to admit that to ourselves and to each other.
Yes. It's a very overwhelming experience to become a parent, for sure.
Yes. So do moms sometimes fear that they're going to be judged for talking about mental health or shamed for needing support with mental health? And if that's the case, how do we change that narrative?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, there's a stigma around mental health in general. And then we have this added layer as becoming a mother, that this is supposed to be the best time in your life. The greatest gift is a child, and it's all supposed to be easy. And so we have that coupled with, right, the supermom ideas and the social media, and that everybody is happy after they have a baby. And then all of a sudden you're like, but I'm not, and this isn't great. And so then am I going to be judged not only for my parenting, but also, do I deserve this baby? Do I deserve to be happy? And so I think that fear of judgment is huge. And so the more that we can continue to talk about the fact that it isn't always just total bliss afterwards, and that there are challenges and that's okay. You don't have to love every minute of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this isolation that new parents sometimes feel. Maybe there's a lack of support from family nearby if we're geographically separated from our families. Maybe there's no daycare options, or parents are working from home and they don't get to spend too much time with adults. So let's talk about isolation in parenthood a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. And definitely, like, we are humans. We are wired for connection. I joke, we're pack animals. We need that. And we need that socialization. And very often when you become that new parent, the sleep deprivation, baby might be cluster feeding, or, you feel like every time you go to change a diaper, they're completely soaked. And so being worried about leaving the house, how are people going to see me? Can I do this? And then we have the added pressures of pandemic life that have made things even more isolating, for sure. So, it really is, it's being intentional and making sure that we have our support systems in place, making sure we know where that new moms group is, making sure we know, like, what park is great and that has all of those, the other new moms around, and doing some front end work before we get there. Again, I think prevention is kind of the key. We got to figure out where it is. And we really do just need to take that step and be open and willing and vulnerable and saying, I need help when I need help.
How do you suggest parents look at their mental health and make sure that they're staying on top of things? Is there an equation that you can think of, or some sort of checklist where people can say, I need to do X, Y, or Z every day to make sure I'm taking care of myself? Does something like that exist, or is it something that parents can create for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we should all have. And yeah, new parents need to kind of create that, because it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But
Sure.
My rule of thumb is that if you're questioning, if you're thinking about it, reach out and get support, whether that's weekly individual therapy, whether that is, a new parent group. just trying to make sure that there are those things in place. And think about it, there are a couple out there. You can Google postpartum plan. They can give you a couple of things, and just in terms of self-care, and how you are taking care of yourself. Think about, what are you doing now before the baby's here that is reasonable and that you can modify, or just continue on exactly, if you can continue on exactly the same way, great. But if you need to make some modifications, if you're a big exerciser, well, we can't do a full on, workout routine 2 days after we have a baby, but are there things that we can do? Is there, getting up, walking, movement, things like that, just to keep that self-care going?
Sure. I know self-care is something, certainly I have 5 kids, so that's a struggle for me. And sometimes
yeah,
it's easier said than done, right? Like you can say, oh, I intend to read at night, or I intend to go for a walk every day, but it doesn't always happen. So I like the idea of trying to put something in place before you get to the point where you realize you're not taking care of yourself. Again, I think you're going back to the same theme of prevention being key, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Yeah. And letting your support network know. So letting your partner know, it's really important to me that I get 5 minutes just to myself, to just sit completely silent for, every day, or it's important for me to get movement. So make sure I'm getting out for a walk. Have other people who are there to help keep you accountable. Have that friend that you like to talk to say, hey, if you haven't heard from me by 3 p.m., you need to reach out.
That's a great idea. And while we're on the subject of friends and siblings and partners, is there anything specifically that, if there's friends and siblings and partners watching right now, what can they do while a mom is pregnant or recently after birth to sort of help with that? I like what you say, keep them accountable, make sure that they're actually doing that self-care. That's a great idea too.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And also, say something. If you notice that new mom or that pregnant woman or birthing individual is not themselves, say something. Reach out and say, hey, you're just not the same. Something's going on. What can I do to support you? And, so often, again, because we have stigmas around mental health, sometimes people won't say anything because they don't want to upset. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or, have them feel judged, but we have to call it out. If we're seeing it, we have to let our loved ones know that we're there. So that is a huge thing. They can familiarize themselves with the local resources. So they know where the moms group is. They know where the play group is. They know where, the lines to call, the PSI line, or other supports in order to help mom. Also being very specific on what they will do to help. So often we're like, oh, let me know what you need. Let me know what you need. And that's great. But new parents have so many decisions to make, and they are very tired and not always able to think of what actually is going to help me. So instead of let me know when I can bring you dinner, it's I'm going to make you a lasagna and salad. I'll bring it on Tuesday night. I know you haven't slept in a week, really. So on Saturday, I'm going to come and I'll stay at your house from 10 until 5, and just so you can get some sleep. Being specific and putting it out there what you can do.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Those are such wonderful pieces of advice. I do want to go back just for a second to, you said the PSI number. Can you elaborate on what that is for any parents who may not know?
Yes, Postpartum Support International is an amazing organization that anybody who is pregnant, thinking about becoming pregnant, parenting, has a parenting loved one, should be familiar with. And they have a helpline that you can call or text, and get resources for your loved one or for yourself. And they have local coordinators in your area who will be able to refer you to those people who are actually trained in perinatal mental health. They will offer groups. They have tons of online support. So if you ever need anything related to postpartum mental health, reach out to, it's postpartum.net. They have wonderful services.
Thank you. And we'll put that link in the written portion of this story as well, so that people have access to that. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. If you are a mom and you're out there and you're struggling, please know that it's normal and that there is help available. And thanks for watching today.